The cafe wasn't fancy. Two mismatched tables near the window, a flickering neon sign that made everything look a little more tired than it was. I liked it for that reason. No one expected much from anyone here. I came most mornings after my shift ended. The kind of morning where the sky was still figuring itself out. She was already there the first time I noticed her. Mid-40s, maybe. Hair tucked neatly behind one ear, silver glint of earrings catching the early light. She sat alone, a book half open, cup of black coffee untouched long enough for a thin film to form. I don't know why I looked twice. Maybe it was the way she turned the page, carefully, as if each word weighed something. The barista, a friend from college, nudged me. "That's your usual, right?" "Yeah," I said. "And whatever she's having." The woman looked up when the second coffee was placed in front of her. There was a pause, a polite confusion in her expression. "I didn't order." "I know," I said quickly, instantly regretting how it sounded. "I just thought you might want a warm one." Her mouth tilted. Not quite a smile. More like she was amused that I'd tried. "Well," she said softly, "thank you." Her voice had that kind of quiet certainty that made people listen without knowing why. That became a pattern, not daily, but often enough that the staff stopped asking whose order went with mine. Some days she'd nod when I walked in, others, she wouldn't look up at all. I never sat with her. I just liked knowing she was there. There's a strange kind of comfort in routine when your life doesn't have one. My apartment was small, my job was temporary, my friends had started speaking in future tense. Things I didn't quite fit into. She seemed like the kind of person who already had answers for questions I hadn't learned to ask yet. One morning, I caught her watching me as I texted someone and erased it before sending. The corners of her eyes softened. "Hard to say what you mean?" she asked. I shrugged, pretending to laugh, harder to make it sound normal. She nodded, like she understood. Maybe she did. After that, she started asking little things. How the weather felt on my walk over, whether I preferred the corner seat or the bar stool. Harmless things. But sometimes harmless things stick. A few weeks in, I noticed a man approach her table. Older, expensively dressed, sharp in that way people get when they're used to control. He leaned in close. I caught only fragments. "You don't belong with them. Family name?" "After the merger." Her fingers tightened around her cup. She didn't answer, just looked at the condensation sliding down the glass. The man left without finishing his drink. I wanted to say something, but she beat me to it. "Some people," she murmured, "still think kindness is currency." It was the first time she looked at me like she saw straight through the surface. That night, I found myself scrolling through my messages again. Her name wasn't there. I didn't even know it. But the thought of her lingered. The way she paused before speaking. The way she folded her napkin perfectly before leaving. At 11:42 p.m., a text buzzed through, from an unknown number. "You're kind. Don't lose that. Tomorrow I might not be here." No name, no explanation, just that. And for the first time in months, I didn't know whether to sleep or go back to the cafe and wait. She didn't show up the next morning. Or the one after. By the third day, I'd stopped pretending I wasn't looking for her. The chair by the window stayed empty, her usual book, Collected Letters of Rilke, was gone from the shelf. I told myself it didn't matter. That we were just two people who happened to share coffee and small talk. But there's a difference between knowing someone and noticing them. She'd left an outline I couldn't stop tracing. When she finally walked in again, it was raining. The kind of rain that blurred faces into watercolor. She looked different, tired, maybe, or lighter. I wasn't sure. She caught my stare and lifted the corner of her umbrella slightly, as if to say, "Yes, I'm here." "You disappeared," I said, keeping my tone casual. "I had to visit family," she replied. Then, quieter, "The kind who think I should have married differently." Her words hovered. I didn't ask for details. She didn't offer any. But something in the way she said it, half apology, half confession, made the air between us change. We sat in silence, the hum of rain filling the space words couldn't reach. I noticed her hand tremble slightly as she stirred her tea. I wanted to steady it, but instead I pushed the sugar toward her. "Thank you," she said, and smiled like she was grateful I hadn't asked more. Later that week, she invited me to help carry a box of files to her car. I learned she owned a small consulting firm, something to do with mergers and acquisitions. The irony wasn't lost on me. She spent her days fixing what people broke. As we loaded the trunk, she said, "You're too young to spend so much time alone in cafes." "Maybe," I said, "but you're too something to be doing the same." She laughed softly. "Too old," I hesitated. "Interesting for quiet places." That made her pause. She looked at me for a long moment, then closed the trunk gently, like ending a thought she didn't want to finish. We started walking together after that. Never far, never long, just enough for people to look twice but not ask questions. She told me she'd been married once, divorced for years, no children. I didn't tell her that I sometimes imagined what it would feel like to hold her hand and not let go halfway. Once, as we crossed a street, she reached out, instinctively, to steady me from a passing car. Her fingers brushed my wrist, brief and electric. She pulled back quickly, pretending not to notice. But I did. I noticed everything: the way she avoided eye contact afterward, how she tucked her hair behind her ear twice instead of once, how she said goodbye without using my name. That night, I wrote a message and erased it again. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I didn't send it. Some things feel more honest when left unsaid. She started coming later. Always afternoon now, when the cafe was nearly empty, when the light outside had that soft, amber hesitation before evening. The first time, she said it was because her mornings were getting complicated. The second time, she didn't explain. Something in her tone had changed, polite still, but guarded, like someone who'd realized a door had been left open too long. I tried to act normal, ordered my coffee, found my usual seat, pretended not to glance at the door every few minutes. But when she finally walked in, something in me always exhaled first. "Long day?" I asked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Every day feels long lately," I nodded. "Too much work?" She hesitated, then softly, "Too much everything." The silence after that wasn't uncomfortable, just dense, like air before a storm. I watched her stir her tea again. The tiny clink of spoon against porcelain louder than it should have been. I wanted to ask what she meant. I didn't. Instead, I said, "You changed your schedule." Thought maybe I'd done something wrong. That made her laugh, quiet, genuine this time. "You'd be surprised how little of my life is about you." "Yeah," I said, half smiling. "That's the problem." She froze for a moment, not offended, just startled by the honesty of it. Then she looked away, out the window, where the light was thinning into gold. Later, a friend of mine, the barista, leaned over the counter when she'd gone. "Dude," he whispered. "Isn't she like twice your age?" I said. He raised an eyebrow. "You okay with that?" I didn't answer. Just watched her umbrella vanish around the corner. The next afternoon, I didn't go to the cafe. I told myself I was too busy, but really I just wanted to see if she'd notice. She did. That night a message arrived: "You skipped today." No greeting, no name, just that. I replied I figured you needed quiet. A pause. Then quiet isn't always peace. We saw each other again the next day. She didn't sit across from me this time. She sat beside me, close enough for her perfume to make the air seem smaller. She said she was leaving town soon. "Meetings," she explained. "Something about a deal that's gone too far." Her hand brushed mine when she reached for her cup. Neither of us pulled away right away. She looked down. "You shouldn't wait for people who live like that." "Like what?" "Half here," she whispered. For a second, maybe less, the world narrowed to the faint sound of her breath, the trembling of her fingers. I almost said her name. I almost asked her not to go. But the door opened, a gust of air, a group of strangers. And just like that, she shifted back, breaking the spell. When she finally stood to leave, she paused, hand resting on the table. "Good night," she said. It sounded too final for afternoon. It happened on a Thursday. A colorless afternoon that smelled faintly of rain and burnt espresso. She'd asked if I wanted to walk with her, said the air might help her untangle a few things. I didn't ask what things. I just followed. We took the long path that curved behind the old courthouse. Trees shedding leaves like it was something they'd been waiting to do. She kept her hands in her coat pockets the whole time, eyes fixed ahead. When she finally spoke, It wasn't about business or the cafe or anything I expected. You ever feel like people only remember the version of you that fits their story? Her voice sounded fragile. I nodded before I even knew what she meant. Yeah, I said. And when you stop fitting, they just replace you. She smiled faintly, but it didn't last. That's exactly it. We sat on a bench near the river. The city was a blur of light on the water. I have to leave again, she said. Work. She hesitated, something like that. There it was. The quiet H that came before loss. I looked at her, really looked, trying to memorize small things, the line of her jaw, the way she blinked slower when she was tired. You don't owe me an explanation, I said, though it sounded like I wanted one. Maybe not, she murmured. But you deserve honesty, and I haven't been. That landed harder than I expected. I tried to play it off. You're married. She shook her head. No. A long pause. Just someone who used to be. Her voice cracked a little, unused to. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to reach for her hand, but my own stayed frozen on my knee. Instead, I asked, why do I feel like I'm about to lose something I never had? She turned toward me then. The first time she'd looked at me in minutes. Her eyes were softer than her words. Because, she said, you're not supposed to hold on to people who are still learning how to let go. The wind picked up, scattering the leaves at our feet. You're scared, I said quietly. She smiled. So are you. Yeah, I admit it, but I'm not running. That broke something in the air. The part we'd both been pretending didn't exist. For a moment, everything stilled. She shifted closer, her shoulder brushing mine. I could hear her breath catch. Then she whispered, almost to herself, you don't know who I am. I wanted to tell her it didn't matter. That names and titles and family deals meant less than this. This strange, calm ache sitting between us. But she stood up before I could. Her eyes lingered on me like she was memorizing something too. Don't wait, she said. I didn't move, didn't answer. She turned away, and for a heartbeat that felt like a question, I almost followed. She disappeared again. No text this time, no message, no folded napkin left behind, just absence. The kind that makes noise. The cafe felt wrong without her, like someone had turned the light slightly too low. I still sat by the window, half hoping she'd walk in, half hoping she wouldn't. The barista stopped asking if I wanted 2 coffees. Even the chair across from me seemed to have given up waiting. A week passed before I heard her voice again. Not in person, but through the television in the corner of the cafe. Business news. A segment about a corporate merger gone wrong. Valeria Marin, the anchor said, CEO of Marin Holdings, reportedly pulled out of a $950 million acquisition deal after internal conflict and personal concerns. There she was, my quiet stranger from the cafe, standing at a podium, every trace of softness erased. Her hair tied back, her voice steady, her expression unreadable. I stared until someone nudged me. Hey, the barista said, isn't that? I don't know, I said too quickly. But I did. For days, I couldn't decide what felt worse. The lie, or realizing it hadn't really been one. She'd never promised me anything. Never said she was ordinary. I'd assumed that part myself. Still, the image of her, the way she'd smiled, the quiet between us, didn't fit the person on screen. I wanted to be angry. Instead, I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. A week later, I went to the cafe at night. It was nearly empty, just a couple of students and the hum of the fridge. I ordered her usual by mistake. Halfway through my cup, I saw movement by the window. She was there, no cameras, no entourage, just her, in the same coat, same silver earrings, hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. I froze. She looked up, saw me, and smiled, faintly, apologetically. I didn't think you'd still come here, she said. I didn't think you would, I replied. Her laugh was quiet, but tired. You saw it, didn't you? I nodded. So now you know. I don't, I said, not really. She looked down at her hands. You weren't supposed to. There was so much I wanted to ask. Why she hid it, why she kept coming, what any of it had meant. But every question felt too small for the space between us. Instead, I said, you could have told me, she sighed. And then what? You'd have looked at me differently, maybe, probably. When I looked up again, she was standing. I have to go, she said. This isn't a place I can stay anymore. Her seat was still warm when I reached across the table. Not to stop her, just to feel something she'd left behind. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. A draft message blinked on the screen. You could have just said goodbye. I didn't send it, because maybe she already had. It had been a month since I last saw her. Long enough for the coffee shop to change its playlist. For the barista to stop glancing toward the door when I walked in. Long enough for her voice to become memory. Softer now, as if distance had blurred its edges. Then one evening, I found her again. Not in the cafe, not on a screen. Just by chance. She was standing outside the bookstore near the square, coat buttoned, hair loose, holding a small paper bag. For a moment, I thought about walking past. Pretending I hadn't seen her. Pretending I'd learned to forget. But she looked up at the exact moment I hesitated. And that was that. We ended up sitting on the curb just beyond the lamplight. The way people do when they're too tired to pretend they have anywhere better to be. Neither of us spoke for a while. The air smelled faintly of rain again, like the first time. Finally, she said, "You're still angry." "I'm not," I said. Then, after a pause, "Maybe I wanted to be." She nodded slowly like she understood that better than I did. "I didn't mean to lie," she said. "I just didn't want to be her for a little while. Valeria Marin, the woman with numbers for company and lawyers for friends. So you chose me." She exhaled. "None, I just stopped choosing anything. You were the first person who didn't ask for a thing." The streetlight flickered. She rubbed her palms together, like she was trying to warm herself from the inside. "You could have told me," I said quietly. "I was afraid it would change something," she replied. "It did anyway." Her eyes lifted to mine, tired, careful, searching. "And now?" I thought about everything, the waiting, the silences, the almost touch that had lived in my mind like a heartbeat. I wanted to ask what I was supposed to do with it now, but what came out was simpler. "Now I don't know where to put you." Her lips curved, small and sad. "Somewhere you can still find me when you need to." She reached into the paper bag and handed me something. A thermos, old and silver, the kind you don't see much anymore. "You left it once," she said. I hadn't. But I didn't correct her. We sat there until shop lights went out, until the noise of the city faded into the kind of quiet that only exists between two people who have said almost everything. Then she turned to me. "I cancelled the deal," she said. "It wasn't worth what it was costing." I nodded. "Neither were the lies." She smiled faintly, eyes glinting in the lamplight. "You're right." A pause, heavy, final. Then her hand brushed mine. Warm, steady. "Okay," she whispered. I squeezed her fingers not to hold on, just to answer. "Okay, it's been 6 months. The cafe has a new barista now. Younger, distracted, always humming along to songs he doesn't know the words to. The window seat looks the same though. The table still wobbles if you lean on it too much. I still come here around 8:47 a.m. I don't plan it that way, my body just moves on routine. Some mornings I bring work. Some, I just sit. The silence doesn't bother me anymore." She started showing up again a few weeks ago. No announcement, no message. Just one day she was there. The first time, she walked in like nothing had happened, ordered her black coffee, and sat by the window. When she saw me, she gave a small nod. That was all. It was enough. Now, we share that table most mornings. Sometimes she brings her thermos. The one she said was mine. She still folds her napkin neatly when she's done. I still pretend not to notice when she watches me text and erase things. We don't talk about what came before. No explanations, no heavy words. Just the rhythm of two people who learn not to rush what doesn't need to be rushed. Once, she said quietly, "You still drink it the same way." "Habit," I replied. She smiled. "Or memory." I asked once if she ever missed that other version of her life. The meetings, the cameras, the boardrooms with glass walls and expensive silence. She thought for a while before answering. "Sometimes," she said. "But I don't miss who I was in them." I understood. Because I wasn't the same either. Not the boy waiting for someone to look his way. I'd learned that love wasn't about the moment someone noticed you. It was about staying seen when everything else gets complicated. On colder mornings, we take our coffee to the park, back to the bench near the river. The one where she first told me she was leaving. The trees have grown thinner now, but the view hasn't changed much. The city still hums in the distance, pretending it's not watching. She sits close, shoulders brushing, her hand resting near mine but never taking it. We don't need to fill the air anymore. The quiet is full enough. Do you ever think about that first day? She asked once. The one with the cold coffee. She laughed softly. That one, I nodded. Sometimes I think everything started before that. We just hadn't noticed. She looked at me for a long moment, her expression somewhere between fond and sad. Then she reached for my hand, not a gesture of romance, just recognition. The same kind of warmth you get from sunlight through glass. 8:47, she said, glancing at her watch. You're right on time. And for once, I didn't feel like life had paused mid-sentence. It had simply, quietly, found its place to end.